because
think so.
Because in times where I've had to be like, you know what, I'm gonna buckle down for a year. A year's a long time, and that's, you know what I'm saying. A year, and like people say like, oh, that, you know, time flies, and it does retrospectively, right? But if you tell yourself right now, a year from now, I want like X, Y, and Z. That's hard. Because that's 52 weeks. That's 365 days. That's a lot of habits that you have to put together. That's a lot of like thinking ahead. Stuff, right? So like the fact that I spent six years essentially building from like my sophomore year in college to, let's say, when I bought the house. Yeah. Right? Like I spent like 6 years trying to build for that. Mm-hmm. And and you limited yourself a lot. Oh hell like, yeah! I was like limited. I would force myself to be like
all the time how much like she talks about it a lot, being like, no, your brother wanted what he wanted and he made that shit work. However limited he had to be living.
Mm-hmm. I was driving before this car, I was driving like that old green minivan that was busted up inside. I remember that. And like the fucking, you would touch the console and the whole console will fall off. and then no AC. That thing, and I was going to U of H on that bitch. Like,
and it was like in your eyes all the time. Dusty as hell.
Like it would get you. I was going to U of H in that. Yeah. And like.
And you see, I want to call it like a spoiled mentality because I feel like I have been spoiled a lot, especially me as the girl.
Yeah, you're the only girl. So.
Yeah, I have been spoiled in ways that are very interesting, and they haven't been particularly ways that I've, like now that I look at it as like an older person with a kid and everything, I'm like, damn, like I wish I hadn't been treated this way. Because it makes it hard for me to form habits like those that you have formed.
This is what I'm saying. Like,
because I can't. It's hard for me to get out of the idea of like, but what if I want to shop?
Right. Or it feels like a downgrade. Like, what if I can't? What if I have to live off of rice and tuna for a week?
Yeah, and
it's just like, man, like in the moment you're doing it, and you're like, even though nobody's watching you, in the moment you're like, fuck, like. If you're only used to a certain lifestyle, it makes you feel like, man, I'm really struggling out here. To me, where I would do it and I'd be like watching TV. Yeah, you know what I mean? It wouldn't faze me in the slightest.
To me, like now it phases me, but it bothers me that it phases me. So like it leaves me.
You have to catch yourself. Yeah, you know what I mean? You have to like give yourself a little ego check.
And I
like,
literally am constantly going back and forth between like Marce, like. It's not a big deal that you have to be doing this for yourself. On the contrary, if you keep doing this for yourself, you're going to reap a reward that you can't even imagine at this moment. So just keep doing it. But it comes I feel like at a harder rate for me to try and understand that, to the point where it feels like if I were to conquer something like that, I would be very much like, wow, I'm really proud of myself. Because there's very few things that I'm proud of myself for doing, just because I'm like a lot of the things.
Discipline is something you should definitely be proud of yourself.
Yes, and I don't have that. So like I know it. Like I'm working towards it, but I know that at the moment there is a lot of things that I can't feel proud of simply because a lot of them were given to me, and a lot of them were. If it wasn't given to me, the path was made for me and I just had to walk it. It wasn't like, I think the only thing that has been relatively like on my own has just been raising my kid.
But that's just a big deal though.
Yeah.
That's still a big fucking deal. Because motherfuckers be out here hella bad parents and they got money. Like, you know, so.
That's true. I mean,
so that's that's another thing. But to that point, there has to always be like an ego check.
Yeah,
and I was always very comfortable. I think because my endeavors, my goals have always been artistic in nature. Mm-hmm. They've never necessarily been. I've never had a goal. And me and Bree talk about this on and off extensively. We've talked about this for years now, but. I've never had like a financial goal. Like, you know how people are like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Or like, oh, I want to like, you know what I mean? I want to have access and I want to have money and I want to be in that because that money buys things and fancy things and friendships and like, you know what I mean? I can give a fuck about any of that. Yeah. Like I don't have like a financial goal. I don't have like a thing where like in 5 years I want to be able to like afford this, right? In 5 years, I want to buy this. Or in 5 years, my bank account needs to look like this. I can give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
I have more goals that are artistic in nature. Things like the album that I wrote or the albums that I've written, right? And how to put that out. And not only how to put that out, but how to like put that out artistically, the vision of it. Then that in and of itself, it's like a very easy, like slippery slope to like, okay, well now you have to learn about camera equipment. So I went to school for that. And then, so like everything is tethered to more and more of these artistic endeavors. So like if my real goal is I just want to be as artistic as I want to be and have these things put out, whether it's dancing, whether it's circus, whether it's music, whether it's media, whatever it is, right? Like if that's my actual goal, then getting the money is just like a means to an end, right? I need the big amount of capital. I need the expensive house so that I can use that as a stepping stone for something else. I need to be in the hoopty for 10 years so that I can not have to have a car note. Yeah. So that I can spend that, fucking $5,000 a year on something else. Yeah. That I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
All of that to me is just like, they're not necessarily even sacrifices. I don't even see them as sacrifices. Whereas like, we've talked about dating before, right? Like I've been in situations where I've really had to ego check myself and I've had to tell myself, man, like what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of man are you? What kind of person are you trying to become or whatever? And in that moment, I have like a thing where I'm like, oh, I am 100% aware of how I am as a person and what I bring to the table. But optically wise, you might see me and you might judge me and be like, oh, like, I don't trust that. Like, I'm here in my life and I'm trying to level up and I don't think you could help me. I'm not mad at the women in my life that have in the past made that decision. Yeah. Because I didn't have, I optically, you couldn't see what I had to offer. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the lack of visual representation of success was a personal choice on my end because I was like, no, I'm trying to build for this. Yeah. And it's cool if you don't want to take the time to like see that that's what I wanted to do. It's not a big deal. Yeah. Like, because I'm going to do it anyway, whether you're here or you're not, whether my friends are here or my friends are not, whether my parents are here or my parents are not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go for it anyway. You're proof of that. Like, I've never needed like, most of the time I've always done it by myself, to be honest. You know what I mean? So, that's probably why whenever it came to those disciplinary things that you had to, it never felt like a sacrifice, and it's never felt like, oh, I'm giving up something in order to get something in return. Like, to me, it's just like, no, that's what I have to do in order to do what I want. And like the lack of being able to do what I want feels worse than the sacrifice of like the lack of